Oh, come on. What's that song?
There's nothing that you love more than the thrill of speed, but would it surprise you to know that people from the olden days also enjoyed going fast? Well, they did, and they did it in some really, really cool cars. Cars that might not seem fast by today's standards, but back then, they were like freaking lightning, baby. Today, we are gonna look at the fastest production cars from every single year for the past 100 years. Dust off your history books, D-holes. This is D-List. Now, before we get into the fastest cars throughout history, let me start by telling you about the first car ever, just to show how far we have come. The Benz patent motor car was the first car ever made, way back in 1885. It had a single-cylinder engine capable of producing 0.75 horsepower and a top speed of 10 miles per hour. And I know what you're thinking right about now. How fast can a horse run? Well, don't worry, because I got you. The fastest ever recorded horse was clocked at 55 miles per hour. Now that is way faster than the Benz, but not even close to as fast as the first car on our list. The Astro Daimler Prince Henry had a 5.7 liter 4-cylinder engine. Those are some big old cylinders, capable of 85 miles per hour. For years, this car dominated the world. However, in 1928, Duesenberg Model J came along and blew everybody out of the freaking old-timey water with their inline 8-cylinder capable of 119 miles per hour. Oh, we're in the triple digits now, baby. There's a lot of modern cars right now that I would not feel comfortable going 119 miles per hour in. And it remained the fastest car in the world for a while. 1929, Duesenberg Model J. 1930, Duesenberg Model J. 1931, Duesenberg Model J. Duesenberg Model J. Duesenberg Model J. 1937, Model J. Duesenberg 1949, Jaguar XK120. Finally. Whew! The XJ120 was a supremely capable car with a ton of race wins. The top confirmed speed was 124 miles per hour. But there is a rumor going around a bunch of old folks' homes that if you folded down the windshield and covered the passenger seat, the car could top out at over 130 without a freaking windshield. I want to point out that the Jaguar XK120 is the first car on this list that, in my opinion, looks like a sports car, like we think of sports cars today. It's sleek. It looks like it can just cut through the air. All the cars up until this point look like coffins on wheels, and that's not very far from what they were. 1951, 1951, 1952, Jaguar XK120, 1955, the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. Topped out at 140.7 miles per hour with the doors down. With the doors up, it would go much, much slower. Mercedes-Benz 300 SL, Mercedes-Benz 300 1958, Aston Martin DB4, 141 miles per hour. 1959, 1960, 1961, 1962, Ferrari 250 GTO. The world's most expensive car was, in 1962, also the world's fastest car. Its 3-liter V12 produced 296 horsepower and had a top speed of 158 miles per hour. The 250 GTO was produced by old man Enzo to compete in the FIA GT World Championship, which was getting really popular at the beginning of the 60s. It won two back-to-back championships as if it needed to prove itself with looks like that. This is one of the most beautiful, beautiful cars that the world has ever seen. It only held the throne for 1 year, though, before it was beaten by the 1963 Studebaker Avanti. Now, this was a last-ditch attempt by Studebaker to save their failing car company. And they made this, a fiberglass body with a 289 cubic inch V8, which delivered 290 horsepower and made the Avanti, which means go in Italian. A little language lesson for you guys there. You know, it's not just cars. The fastest car in the world up until that point. A true, if somewhat unknown, cult American icon. 1964, AC Cobra Mark III 427. You guys know I love my boy Carroll Shelby, and the AC Cobra is probably his greatest accomplishment. This thing is not only one of the most iconic cars in America, it is one of the most recognizable sports cars in the world. I love Carroll Shelby to death. He's honestly my favorite person in cars. We've done 4 episodes of our podcast on it. 2 or 3 up to speeds on them. I'll put the links to all those things in the description below. 1967 Lamborghini Miura P400, propelled by its 4-liter, 385 horsepower V12. This thing rocketed up to 171 miles per. The Miura is commonly known as the world's first supercar. So it's no wonder that it was also the world's fastest car when it was launched in 1967. For 8 months. In 1968, Ferrari retaliated with the 365 GTB4 Daytona, which was capable of 174 miles per hour. Big old thanks to Off the Record for sponsoring this week's episode of People. Watching this video will get the ticket of your how we pay 3 miles per hour faster than the Lamborghini, which is such an Enzo move. I mean, you guys know Enzo. I know Enzo. Isn't this so Enzo? Ferruccio Lamborghini would have the last laugh in this particular speed war, though, because his 1969 Lamborghini Miura P400S clocked an impressive 179.3 miles per hour and would hold the title for almost a decade. 1979 Lamborghini Countach LP400. That's right, the Miura held the record until the 179 mile per hour Lamborghini Countach LP400 was let loose on the streets in 1979. The Countach set the precedent for supercar styling for the next 10 years, and its 3.9 liter, 370 horsepower V12 ruled the world. 1984 Ferrari 288 GTO. After 15 years of Lamborghini producing the fastest cars in the world, yet again, Ferrari had the last Italian laugh. 1986 Porsche 959, the first all-wheel drive car to make the list, which is interesting because all-wheel drive is now a feature on pretty much all of today's fastest cars. The 959 was about more than top speed. However, it featured so many technological innovations, which ruled the late 80s and early 90s, and was, until the McLaren F1, which we'll talk about in a second, hold on to your shorts, the most technologically advanced production car in the world. Interestingly, Porsche's main competitor was the 1987 Ferrari F40, the last car that Enzo Ferrari personally signed off on before his death. The F40 was expected to be the world's fastest production car, and it was in Italy. Let me explain. The F40 was never recorded going over 200 miles per hour outside of Italy, which basically means that it probably didn't go over 200 miles per hour. Ferrari has a habit of giving their specs and stats a little massaging. Still, the actual top speed of 199 miles per hour still made it faster than the 959, and therefore it would have been the world's fastest production car if it weren't for this guy. Roof's CTR, or Yellowbird as it soon became known, was the underdog when it entered the 1988 high-speed test put on by a German magazine against 2 Ferrari F40s, a Mercedes AMG 6-liter 32-valve, and the current fastest car in the world at the time, the Porsche 959. The CTR recorded a speed of 212 miles per hour, blitzing, absolutely blitzing, the times posted by the Porsche, Ferraris, and Mercedes, and going on to become the fastest car in the world. And I just want to point out, I think that it's incredible that a relatively unknown company from Germany managed not only to break the 200 mile per hour barrier first, but to get all the way to 212.5. Incredible engineering from one of my favorite manufacturers. 1990. The 1990 Vector W8 might have made the list at this point. However, they only made 19 of them, so it sort of doesn't count. Plus, the top speed was a claimed 242 miles per hour, but nobody was ever brave enough to actually try and go that fast in it. So I wanted to mention it. but it's not official. It's on the list, but it's not. Moving on. 1992, Jaguar XJ220. Now, this is the second Jaguar that we mentioned on this list and the fastest six-cylinder car in the world to date. And it would have been the fastest car in 1992 if the Bugatti EB110 didn't come onto the scene and instantly murked him and stole his crown with a top speed of 218 miles per hour. We are getting to ridiculous speed at this point, but all of this is about to pale into insignificance with the emergence of this. 1993, McLaren F1. All right, we've been waiting patiently, and it's time for the big boy. The McLaren F1 is kind of like flaming hot Doritos. Everyone remembers where they were when they first became aware that this beautiful machine exists. The McLaren F1 stands as the highest watermark possible for automotive development up until that point, and realistically was the world's first true hyper. The McLaren pioneered so many features which helped it to achieve its mind-blowing top speed. It's also still the fastest naturally aspirated production car ever. Its 6.1 liter BMW V12 produced 618 brake horsepower and straight up rocketed the three-seater McLaren to a record-breaking 240 miles per hour. And it was the daddy for the next 10 years. Literally my entire childhood, this was the fastest car in the world. Mr. Bean wrecked one twice until in 2005, Koenigsegg pre-released this. The Koenigsegg CCR, which achieved a top speed of 240.7 miles per hour. But it also doesn't matter because a few months later, along came this.
Bugatti Veyron.
Now, Bugatti at this point is actually owned by Volkswagen. It's a great story. There's a link in the description below. It said that Volkswagen lost an incredible $6.3 million for every Veyron they sold. However, the Veyron was never meant to be a commercial success. Its purpose was something far greater. It was conceived and built with the sole purpose of becoming the fastest production car in the world, and by golly, it was. Its 8-liter quad-turbo W16 produced a ridiculous 987 horsepower. Power was delivered to all four wheels, and with the spoiler lowered to reduce drag, the Veyron could hit a mind-bending 253 miles per hour, and it was undisputedly the fastest production car in the world for a while. 2006,
Veyron.
2007,
Bugatti,
2008,
Veyron.
2009. Finally, the Veyron was knocked off of the top spot. Who could knock it off? Another Bugatti Veyron! 2010 Bugatti Veyron 16.4 Super Sport achieved 267.856 miles per hour, cementing the Veyron's place in history for an entire generation. It was 9 years before something came along that could actually challenge the Veyron. The 2014 Hennessy Venom GT had a top speed of 270.49 miles per. It was based on a heavily modified Lotus Exige powered by a 7-liter V8 that made 1,244 horsepower. However, Hennessy is still classified as a performance tuner rather than a manufacturer, and rules is rules. I can't argue with the rules even though I made up the rules. In 2016, a full 11 years after the Veyron took its place at the top of the pyramid, along came this. Chiron. The 8-liter quad-turbo W16 was totally re-engineered to produce 1,479 horsepower. The Chiron immediately took the standard set by the Veyron and raised it to a truly staggering height. The Chiron's top speed was electronically limited to 261 miles per hour, mainly because Bugatti was worried that if they went any faster, the tires would act unpredictably, possibly even exploding. Both in terms of looks and performance, this thing seems like it came from another planet, which is why what happened next seems so unbelievable. In 2017, the Koenigsegg Agera RS shocked the world when it managed an incredible 277.87 miles per hour. Max, can you just show these guys what 277.87 miles per hour looks like? But if you think that Bugatti would take that sitting down, then you're certified bonkers, pal. And that's why in 2019, they took their newest version of the Chiron and did this. 2019 Bugatti Chiron Super Sport 300 Plus. Can you guess what the 300 Plus stands for? In 2019, Bugatti revealed that it would be making 30 examples of the ultimate version of the Chiron. It is a Chiron Super Sport with a heavily modified body with drag reduction and closely resembles the Chiron prototype, which made history when it became the first road car to travel at over 300 miles per hour. The Super Sport 300 Plus is a production road version of that record-breaking car and has recorded a legal production car top speed with tires that won't explode of 304.77 miles per hour. Power is up to 1,500. We'll have a $6 million Super Sport here. It will make this car